Ever feel like you're just winging it? Like, everyone else has it figured out, and you're about to be exposed as a total fraud.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, you're not alone. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a topic that affects a surprising number of people, imposter syndrome. We've got this fascinating article from Very Well Mind to guide us. You know that nagging feeling of not being good enough? Despite all the evidence to the contrary, we're going to break down what imposter syndrome is, explore its impact, and arm you with some practical tools to combat it.
Well, what's interesting is imposter syndrome isn't a clinical diagnosis. You wouldn't find it in a textbook.
Interesting.
It's more of a psychological pattern.
Okay.
A way of thinking and feeling that can be incredibly pervasive.
So it's not like you need to go to the doctor and get a note saying you have imposter syndrome.
Right, exactly. And the article emphasizes a really important point. It's not about actual incompetence.
Okay.
You might be incredibly skilled, very accomplished, but imposter syndrome whispers in your ear, telling you you're not worthy of your success.
Okay, so it's like the sneaky inner critic that convinces you you're a fake, even when you're clearly not. But just how common is this?
Hold on to your hats, because the article states that 70% of people experience imposter syndrome at some point in their lives. That means the majority of us have felt this way.
Wow, that is reassuring in a weird way,
Yeah.
Knowing that I'm not the only one battling these thoughts. So if we're all in this together, how can we better understand this imposter phenomenon?
Well, the article breaks down imposter syndrome into 5 distinct types.
Okay.
Based on the work of Dr. Valerie Young. Each type represents a different way this feeling can manifest. Let's start with the perfectionist.
Oh, I know a few perfectionists.
Oh, yeah.
Always striving for flawlessness, even when it's simply not possible or productive, right?
Yes. Yeah. Picture this. You're working on a project and you've already put in hours of effort. It's objectively good, but that nagging voice in your head
keeps going.
Tells you it's not perfect.
Right.
So you spend another 5 hours tweaking these tiny, tiny details that probably no one else would even notice.
Ugh, I've totally been there. And then you have the expert, right?
Oh, yeah. The expert.
Always feeling like they need just one more certification, one more book, one more course to finally be like a true expert.
Exactly. They might be incredibly knowledgeable in their field, but they constantly doubt their expertise and feel the need to accumulate more and more credentials.
Yeah.
They're the ones who say, I can't possibly take on that project. I don't know enough yet.
Oh, I know those people.
Even though they've got years of experience under their belt.
Yeah. Okay, and how about the natural genius? What makes them tick?
This type believes that success should come effortlessly. So if they have to struggle or put in a significant effort to achieve something, they feel like a phony.
So they just think things should come naturally.
Yes. Imagine someone who breezed through school, rarely needing to study. When they hit a wall in their career and they have to actually work hard, they start questioning their entire identity and abilities.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute, this is hard.
Yeah, it's like their self-worth is tied to this idea of effortless achievement. So what happens when things get tough?
Their confidence just takes a nosedive.
Oh,
and those imposter feelings start to swirl. They think, if I were truly talented, this would be easy for me.
Makes sense. Okay, moving on to the soloist. What's their deal?
The soloist struggles to ask for help.
Oh.
They believe they should be able to handle everything on their own. And if they need assistance, they feel like a failure.
Okay.
They might even turn down opportunities
Wow.
or sabotage their own success because they're too proud or afraid to admit they need support.
It's like they're carrying this heavy burden of independence, even when it's not serving them. Okay, last but not least, we have the super person. What sets them apart?
The super person feels the need to excel in every area of life.
Oh, God.
Work, family, relationships, hobbies.
Everything?
Everything. Yeah. They're constantly pushing themselves to these extreme lengths.
Wow.
Often neglecting their own well-being in the process.
It's almost like they're juggling a million balls in the air.
Yes.
And they're terrified of dropping even one. So how can we spot these imposter tendencies in ourselves?
Yeah.
Are there any telltale signs?
Absolutely. The article outlines several common signs of imposter syndrome, and recognizing them is the first step toward addressing them. One key sign is downplaying your accomplishments.
Okay.
For instance, let's say you receive a glowing performance review at work, and instead of celebrating, you immediately brush it off, saying, oh, it was nothing, anyone could have done it.
It's like deflecting praise becomes an automatic reflex, almost like you're trying to protect yourself from being exposed as a fraud.
Exactly. Another sign is attributing your success to external factors, like luck or good timing, rather than acknowledging your own skills and hard work. You might say, I only got that promotion because the other candidate dropped out.
Right.
Completely disregarding the fact that you aced the interview and have a stellar track record.
It's almost like you're afraid to own your success. Okay, so besides deflecting praise and downplaying your accomplishments, what are some other red flags?
Over-preparing is a big one.
Oh, tell me about it.
We all want to be prepared, but people who are struggling with imposter syndrome tend to take it to the extreme.
Yeah.
They spend countless hours researching, rehearsing, refining, even when they already know the material inside and out. It's like they're trying to compensate for their perceived inadequacy by being over-the-top prepared.
Yeah, I've definitely been guilty of that.
Right.
It's almost like you're afraid that if you're not 110% prepared, everyone will see right through you and realize you're not as smart as they think you are.
It's that fear of being found out that drives a lot of these behaviors.
Yeah.
And the irony is this constant overworking and stressing can actually hinder your performance.
Yeah, it's true.
You end up exhausted and burnt out, which only reinforces those negative thoughts.
So we've covered the different types of imposter syndrome and some of the telltale signs. Now the question is, where does this feeling even come from?
Right.
What are the root causes that contribute to the sense of inadequacy?
The article dives into several factors.
Okay.
And it's important to remember that it's often a combination of things.
Okay.
Not just one single cause.
So it's like a complex puzzle with multiple pieces.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's start with family dynamics.
Okay.
Because early experiences within the family can lay the groundwork for how we view ourselves later in life.
Interesting. So even if we achieve amazing things as adults, those early messages we received as children can still linger in the back of our minds.
You got it. Think about it.
Yeah.
If you grew up in a household where your parents were overly critical or placed an extreme emphasis on achievement, you might internalize the message that you're never good enough, no matter how hard you try.
It's like growing up in a pressure cooker,
Yeah.
where the bar is constantly being raised,
Yeah.
and you're always striving to meet an unattainable standard.
Right. Or imagine a family dynamic where accomplishments weren't celebrated,
Right.
but mistakes were magnified.
Yeah.
You learn to fear failure and associate it with shame and disappointment.
So even as adults, when we achieve success, a part of us might still be waiting for that critical voice
Right.
to tell us we've fallen short. That's powerful stuff. But wait, the article also mentions that family dynamics aren't the only culprit?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sometimes imposter syndrome rears its head when we're faced with new challenges or transitions in our lives.
I see.
Think about starting a new job, moving to a new city, or entering a new social circle. These situations often push us outside of our comfort zone.
It's like that feeling of being the new kid all over again, right?
Yes.
You're surrounded by people who seem to know what they're doing, and you're just trying to blend in and not make a fool of yourself.
Exactly. And in those moments of uncertainty, it's easy for those imposter voices to pipe up and say, see? I told you you weren't good enough. You don't belong here.
So it's like our brains are trying to protect us from potential failure or rejection by convincing us that we're not capable in the first place. Fascinating. But is it all about our environment, or does our personality play a role as well?
That's another piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
The article digs into how certain personality traits can make someone more susceptible to imposter syndrome. For instance, perfectionism, low self-efficacy, and neuroticism are often linked to this phenomenon.
Okay, break those down for me. What do those terms actually mean in a way that's easy to understand?
Think of self-efficacy as your belief in your ability to succeed.
Okay.
If you have high self-efficacy, you approach challenges with confidence,
Okay.
believing in your capacity to figure things out and achieve your goals. But if you have low self-efficacy, you tend to doubt your capabilities,
No.
even when you have evidence to the contrary.
So it's like your internal compass is pointing in the wrong direction, telling you you're lost, even when you're on the right path.
Exactly. And then you have perfectionism,
Right.
which we touched on earlier. It's that relentless pursuit of flawlessness, the need to be the best, the brightest, the most accomplished. And the problem is, perfection is an illusion, a moving target that's impossible to reach.
Right.
So perfectionists are constantly setting themselves up for disappointment and self-criticism.
Makes sense. And how about neuroticism? What's that all about?
Neuroticism refers to a tendency to experience negative emotions more intensely.
Okay.
If you're high in neuroticism, you might be more prone to anxiety, worry, self-doubt,
Okay.
fear of failure.
So it's like your emotional volume is turned up higher than average.
Yes,
And those imposter feelings can really amplify those negative thoughts.
precisely. And there's one more factor to consider: social anxiety. The article talks about the significant overlap
Oh.
between imposter syndrome and social anxiety.
Really? So how does that connection play out?
Well, imagine you're at a networking event, surrounded by people who seem confident and successful.
Okay.
If you're struggling with social anxiety, you might already feel uncomfortable and self-conscious, worrying about what others think of you.
And how does that tie into imposter syndrome?
That feeling of not belonging, of being an outsider,
Yeah.
can intensify those imposter thoughts. You might think, everyone here is so much more accomplished than me. They're going to see right through me and realize I'm a fraud.
So it's like social anxiety and imposter syndrome feed off each other,
Yes.
creating this vicious cycle of self-doubt and fear of judgment.
Exactly. And while not everyone with imposter syndrome experiences social anxiety, and vice versa, the two can be closely intertwined.
Wow, this is really eye-opening. So it sounds like imposter syndrome is a multifaceted beast with roots in our upbringing, personality, and even how we navigate social situations. But this all begs the question: if this feeling is so common and can be so deeply ingrained, is there anything we can do to break free?
That's the million-dollar question, and luckily we have some answers. The article outlines several practical strategies for combating imposter syndrome,
I like the sound of that.
and we'll dive into those in our next segment. Stay tuned, deep divers, because it's about to get really empowering.
All right, so we've explored the what and the why of imposter syndrome, but let's get to the good stuff now, the how. How do we actually kick these pesky imposter feelings to the curb?
Well, the good news is there are lots of practical strategies we can put into practice right away. The article starts with a simple yet powerful one: share your feelings.
Wait, really? Just talking about it can help?
It might seem counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but opening up to a trusted friend, family member, therapist, or even a supportive colleague can be incredibly liberating.
Oh, okay.
Imposter syndrome thrives in secrecy and shame.
Yeah.
When we keep those feelings bottled up, they fester and grow.
Okay, I'm starting to see the logic here. It's like letting the air out of a balloon, right? You release the pressure and suddenly it's not so overwhelming anymore.
Exactly. And when we share our experiences, we often discover that we're not alone. Others have felt those same doubts, faced those same challenges. It normalizes the experience and helps us realize that it's not a sign of weakness or failure.
That makes so much sense. It's like that aha moment when you realize, oh, you feel that way too. I thought I was the only one.
Precisely. And the article emphasizes that talking about it can be incredibly healing. It breaks down the stigma, reduces shame, and helps us build connections with others who understand.
So vulnerability is key here, right?
Right.
Letting go of that fear of being judged and allowing ourselves to be seen even with our imperfections. I love that. What's next on our list of imposter busting strategies?
This one might surprise you. Shift your focus outward.
Interesting. How does that work?
When we're trapped in our own self-doubt, it's easy to get stuck in a negative thought loop. But research has shown that helping others can actually boost our own confidence and well-being.
So it's about taking the spotlight off ourselves
Yes.
and shining it on someone else. I can see how that could be a powerful shift in perspective.
Exactly. When we focus on making a positive impact on someone else's life, it takes our minds off our own perceived flaws and insecurities.
Right.
And in the process, we often discover hidden strengths and talents we didn't even know we had.
It's like that warm, fuzzy feeling you get when you do something kind for someone else.
Yeah.
It's contagious and it spills over into other areas of our lives. So besides sharing our feelings and focusing on helping others, what else can we do to combat imposter syndrome?
Yeah. The article recommends taking stock of your accomplishments and skills.
Oh, I like this one. It's about fighting those negative thoughts with some cold, hard facts, right?
Precisely. So grab a notebook, open a document, or even just make a mental list. Write down everything you've achieved, big or small.
So everything from like graduating college and landing a dream job to learning a new language or mastering a challenging recipe, it's all fair game.
Absolutely. Don't discount anything. And don't just focus on external achievements. Include things like personal growth, acts of kindness, and times you've overcome obstacles.
It's about acknowledging our own resilience and celebrating all the wins along the way, no matter how small they might seem. Love it. What about our skills? Should we be tracking those too?
Definitely. Make a list of your strengths, talents, and areas of expertise. What are you naturally good at? What comes easily to you? What do people compliment you on?
This is such a great exercise because it forces us to shift our focus from what we lack to what we possess.
Exactly. And once you've created this list, keep it somewhere visible. Refer to it whenever those imposter doubts start creeping in. It's a powerful reminder of your capabilities and accomplishments.
I'm already feeling more confident just thinking about it. Okay, so we've talked about sharing our feelings, helping others, and taking stock of our awesomeness. What else can we do to break free from the imposter trap?
The article highlights the importance of taking baby steps.
I love that. It's about breaking down those overwhelming goals into smaller, more manageable chunks, right?
Yeah. Instead of aiming for perfection, which is often an unrealistic and self-defeating goal, focus on making gradual progress.
Okay, so give me an example of what that might look like in real life.
Let's say you're a writer who dreams of publishing a novel, but you're crippled by self-doubt and fear of rejection. Instead of trying to write the entire book in one go, which can feel daunting and overwhelming, break it down into smaller steps.
So maybe start by writing for 30 minutes each day. You're setting a goal of completing like one chapter per week.
Exactly. Or if public speaking is your nemesis, don't sign up for a TED Talk right away. Start by volunteering to give a presentation at a team meeting or joining a Toastmasters group to practice your skills in a supportive environment.
It's all about building momentum and confidence through those small wins, right? Each step forward, no matter how tiny, is a victory worth celebrating.
You nailed it. And speaking of celebrating, let's talk about another key strategy.
Challenge your thoughts.
Ooh, this sounds interesting. Tell me more.
Imposter syndrome thrives on distorted thinking. We tend to catastrophize, overgeneralize, and personalize negative experiences, blowing them way out of proportions. Like our inner critic is on overdrive, constantly bombarding us with messages of self-doubt and inadequacy.
It's like having a negative Nancy living rent-free in our heads.
Exactly. So the key is to become aware of those negative thought patterns and start questioning them.
So when that little voice in my head says, I'm going to totally bomb this presentation and everyone will think I'm an idiot, I should stop and ask myself, is that really true? What evidence do I have to support that thought?
You got it. And more often than not, when we examine those thoughts more closely, we realize they're based on fear and assumptions, not facts.
It's like shining a light on the monster under the bed and realizing it's just a pile of laundry. Exactly. And once we've challenged those negative thoughts, we can start replacing them with more positive and realistic ones.
This is so empowering. Okay, so we've talked about sharing our feelings, helping others, taking stock of our accomplishments, taking baby steps, and challenging those pesky negative thoughts. Are we missing anything?
One more crucial strategy: stop the comparisons.
Oh, this is a big one, especially in the age of social media. It's so easy to get caught up in the comparison game and feel like we're constantly falling short.
You're right. Social media often presents a curated, idealized version of reality.
Right.
We see people's highlight reels, their perfect vacations, their dream jobs, their seemingly effortless successes. It's a recipe for feeling inadequate and envious.
I know, I've definitely fallen into that trap before, scrolling through Instagram and thinking, why doesn't my life look like that?
It's a dangerous game. And it's important to remember that what we see on social media is often a carefully constructed facade.
It's like comparing our behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. No wonder we feel bad.
Exactly. So how can we break free from this comparison trap? The first step is awareness. Recognize when you're falling into the comparison game and gently redirect your attention.
So maybe unfollow those accounts that make you feel bad about yourself or limit your time on social media altogether.
That's a great start. And remember, real life is happening offline. Focus on cultivating authentic connections with people who appreciate you for who you are, flaws and all.
Because let's be real, nobody's perfect. We all have our struggles and insecurities. It's what makes us human. Okay, I'm feeling inspired to ditch the comparison game and focus on what truly matters. What's next on our imposter busting agenda?
The article encourages us to embrace imperfection.
Okay, tell me more about this. It sounds liberating.
Imposter syndrome often stems from a fear of failure, this belief that we need to be perfect to be worthy of love, success, and happiness. But here's the truth. Failure is inevitable. It's a natural part of life, and it's how we learn and grow.
So instead of seeing failure as a sign of incompetence, we can reframe it as a valuable learning opportunity.
Exactly. It's about shifting from a fixed mindset, where we believe our abilities are set in stone,
Okay.
to a growth mindset,
I like that.
where we embrace challenges and see setbacks as opportunities for development.
I love that reframing. It takes the pressure off needing to be perfect and allows us to be more curious and experimental. But let's be real, even with a growth mindset, taking action can still be scary when those imposter doubts are swirling around. Any advice for pushing through the fear?
The article's final piece of advice is simple yet profound. Take action, no matter what.
Yes. Don't let fear paralyze you.
It's about recognizing that those imposter voices might never completely disappear, but we don't have to let them control us.
So it's about choosing courage over comfort, even when it feels uncomfortable.
Exactly. Think about the times in your life when you've achieved something you thought was impossible. Probably didn't feel easy or comfortable at the time, but you pushed through those doubts and took action anyway.
And I bet it felt amazing when you succeeded. Like, wow, I actually did that. Maybe I am capable of more than I thought.
You got it. It's those moments of triumph that chip away at the imposter syndrome and remind us of our true potential.
I'm feeling so much more empowered already. We've covered so much ground, from understanding the different types of imposter syndrome to exploring its root causes and arming ourselves with practical strategies to combat it. But before we wrap things up, are there any final insights you want to leave our listeners with?
Just this. You are not your thoughts. You are not your fears. You are capable, you are worthy, and you have the power to overcome imposter syndrome.
Wow, that was a whirlwind of information. Honestly, I'm feeling so much more equipped to deal with imposter syndrome now.
It's a journey, not a destination.
Right.
There will be days when those doubts creep back in, but now you've got a whole arsenal of strategies to combat them.
Exactly. And you know what I realized? Sometimes feeling like an imposter is a sign that we're pushing ourselves outside of our comfort zone. It means we're not playing it safe. We're taking risks and striving for something bigger.
I love that perspective. It's about reframing those feelings of discomfort as indicators of growth. We're challenging ourselves, we're learning, we're evolving.
So true. And remember that statistic we mentioned earlier, 70% of people experience imposter syndrome at some point. That means it's incredibly common. It's not a sign of weakness or failure. It's actually often a sign of ambition and a desire to achieve great things.
Think about the people you admire most. Successful entrepreneurs, groundbreaking scientists, award-winning artists. Chances are, many of them have battled imposter syndrome along the way.
Right. It's almost like a rite of passage. It's that little voice that says, "Are you sure you can do this?" And our job is to say, "Yes, I am."
And that brings us back to a powerful question from the Very Well Mind article. What core beliefs do you hold about yourself?
It's all about self-awareness, right? Once we identify those limiting beliefs, those negative stories we tell ourselves, we can start to challenge them and rewrite the narrative.
Exactly. Are those beliefs serving you well? Or are they holding you back? Do they empower you? Or do they keep you playing small?
It's time to get real with ourselves and have those honest conversations. What messages are we internalizing? Where did those messages come from? And most importantly, are they still true?
This might be a good time to revisit that list of accomplishments and skills we talked about earlier. It's a powerful way to challenge those negative beliefs with concrete evidence of your capabilities.
Totally. It's like saying to that inner critic, "Hey, look at all the huzzing things I've done. Look at all the skills I've developed. You can't deny the facts."
And remember, you don't have to do this alone. Reach out to a trusted friend, a mentor, a therapist, anyone who can offer support and encouragement on your journey.
We're all in this together, right?
Yeah.
And here's a final thought to leave you with. What if, instead of fearing being found out, we embrace the possibility of being seen, truly seen for who we are, imperfections and all?
What a beautiful and courageous invitation. That's the true antidote to imposter syndrome, isn't it? Authenticity, vulnerability, self-compassion.
On that note, we'll leave you to dive deeper into those reflections. Until next time, fellow deep divers, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep believing in your awesome selves.